two of the most powerful tech companies on the planet just lost a case that could change the internet forever. A jury has officially ruled that Meta Platforms and Google helped addict a child to social media and must pay for the damage. Let that sink in. Not because of what was posted, not because of what she watched, but because of how these platforms were designed. And here is why you need to keep watching. This is not just one shocking case. This verdict could trigger a wave of lawsuits that forces companies like Instagram and YouTube to completely rethink how they keep billions of people hooked. And the deeper you go into this story, the more unsettling it becomes. This story begins with a young girl. Her identity has largely been kept private, but what we do know is that she is now 20 years old. According to her, her life did not just run alongside social media, it was shaped by it in ways she never fully understood at the time. Like millions of others, she started using platforms at a young age. At first it was harmless, watching videos, scrolling through posts, staying connected. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, but over time, something changed. What began as casual use slowly turned into something far more intense. The platforms did not just entertain her, they pulled her in again and again, in ways that became harder to resist. She described spending more and more time online. Hours turned into longer sessions. Sessions turned into habits. And those habits became something that felt almost impossible to break. It wasn't just about enjoying content anymore. It became something she depended on. According to the case, her mental health began to suffer. She experienced anxiety, depression, and serious emotional struggles. Her lawyers argued that this wasn't simply the result of personal circumstances or excessive screen time. They claimed something much more controversial. They argued that the platforms themselves were engineered to be addictive, that the systems behind them, the algorithms, the endless content, the constant stimulation, were not accidental. They were intentional. And that's where this case takes a dramatic turn. Because for years, tech companies have relied on a powerful legal defense. They are not responsible for what users do on their platforms. That argument has protected them in countless cases. But this time, the focus shifted. Instead of blaming content, instead of blaming users, the lawsuit targeted the design. Her legal team pointed directly at features like infinite scrolling, personalized recommendations, and autoplay, systems designed to ensure there is always something next, something new, something perfectly tailored to keep you engaged. They argued that these features were created with one goal: to keep users on the platform for as long as possible. Because the longer you stay, the more ads you see. And the more ads you see, the more money the company makes. In other words, attention isn't just a byproduct of social media, it's the business model. Inside the courtroom, this became the central battle. On one side, a young woman who claimed that her life had been deeply affected by platforms designed to hold her attention at all costs. On the other side were two of the most powerful corporations in the world, backed by vast legal teams and years of precedent. Executives were brought in, experts were questioned, arguments were made about responsibility, about personal choice, about the role of technology in modern life. The defense argued that her struggles could not be directly tied to social media alone. They said many factors influence mental health. They said these platforms are tools, not causes. But after more than 40 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a decision, and it was historic. They ruled that Meta and Google were negligent, not because of specific videos or posts, but because of how their platforms were built. The jury concluded that these companies failed to adequately protect users from the harmful effects of their own systems, and the consequences were immediate. The woman was awarded around $3 million in damages, and that number could still rise as the case moves into a phase where additional penalties may be considered. Meta is expected to pay the larger share of that amount, with Google covering the rest. But the real impact of this verdict goes far beyond money, because this case was never just about one person. It was a test of whether social media companies could be held accountable not for content, but for design choices. And now that that barrier has been broken, everything changes. There are already hundreds, possibly thousands, of similar cases waiting in the United States. Families and individuals are making similar claims. They argue that social media platforms are not just addictive, but intentionally built to be that way. Until now, those cases faced an uphill battle. But this verdict changes the landscape. For the first time, a jury has agreed that the design of these platforms can be harmful, and that companies can be held responsible for it. That creates a ripple effect. If future courts follow this reasoning, the consequences could be massive, not just financially, but structurally. Platforms may be forced to rethink the very features that define them. Features like infinite scroll could be gone or limited. Algorithms that prioritize engagement above all else may be redesigned. Stronger protections, especially for younger users, may be enforced. In short, the core mechanics of social media could be reshaped, and that leads to a deeper problem. The entire system is built on attention. The longer you stay, the more valuable you are as a user. Your time, your clicks, your engagement, they all translate into revenue. So, if platforms are required to become less addictive, they may also become less profitable. And that creates a fundamental conflict between user well-being and business success. Not surprisingly, both companies are pushing back. Meta has made it clear that it disagrees with the verdict. Google has indicated that it plans to appeal. This legal fight is far from over, but even if the outcome changes later, the message has already been sent. Something has shifted, and this case doesn't stand alone. Around the world, concerns about social media and its effects, especially on young people, are growing. Governments are exploring new regulations. Some are considering age limits. Others are debating stricter controls or even bans for younger users. Schools are changing policies. Parents are becoming more cautious. The conversation is evolving. But at the center of it all is one question that is becoming harder to ignore. Who is responsible? Is it the user who chooses to scroll? Is it the parents who allow access? Or is it the companies who design systems that are incredibly difficult to resist? For years, the answer seemed clear. Now, it's anything but. Because this case may be remembered as the moment the narrative changed. The moment a jury looked at the world's biggest tech companies and decided that what they built wasn't just engaging, it was potentially harmful, and that they should be held accountable for it. If that idea continues to gain traction, the apps that billions of people use every single day may never look the same again. And this might only be the beginning.